Originally, we were going to go through these games in order, but there's a lot of Assassin's Creed games to talk about, and I don't just want to keep hitting the Ezio trilogy over and over and not talk about anything else.
That's the only one that matters.
Well, it is awesome. But I wanted to take a look at Assassin's Creed 3. I think that this is a game that is very contentious in the fandom. Not everybody loves this game. We both really like it.
I love it.
Yeah, you and I love it, Nate, but I think a lot of people don't. So I thought today we'd take a look at Assassin's Creed 3 and 5 different things that we think are kind of mistakes that they made on this game that we would have changed from our armchair game developer position. So before we hop into this, if you enjoy this video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content. We do cover Assassin's Creed, and I'd love to hear your ideas for more videos on AC or things you think 3 did wrong. Let's hop into it.
Number 5.
So the first one I wanted to talk about with you, Nate, is hiding Conors Development as a character behind different walls. And what I mean by that is optional missions like the homestead missions. There's a lot of Conors Development as a person that people never saw. Now, is it also some players' fault in a way for not engaging with some of the side content? Sure, because that side content is obviously canon and it's part of the story. But not everyone's going to play every side mission, and with Assassin's Creed 3, I noticed a lot of the humanization of Connor as a person is in this side content, because whenever the main story gets to it, they kind of jump past certain parts that we really wanted to see.
Yeah, I noticed that too. The most obvious example of this is Connor's beginning part of his life. Like when he's born, and then I think there's like a little part in the game where he's like a kid, and then you just jump all of a sudden ahead till he's an adult. And it's like, okay, well, there's a lot there that we missed, but okay, whatever. And honestly, I wouldn't even really care that much if there wasn't like 1,000,000 hours of Haytham, which I'll end that there for right now. But
yeah, well, that's the thing. When you have to share the game
with someone else,
two characters, you're going to have some missed opportunities.
Right, it's going to be scrunched into a lesser part of the game, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's the problem. I mean, there's like the homestead missions, which were fun. I like them. But I understand not everyone's going to do those.
Right.
They're side quests. They're optional. And that's kind of the problem when you hide development of a character behind stuff like that. It's like with Assassin's Creed 2, how a lot of Ezio's development was hidden behind DLC.
Yeah, the Bonfire of Vanities DLC pack, which we didn't get to play growing up, which led to our very bad take that Ezio didn't develop in Assassin's Creed 2.
Right.
Because we missed like one of the biggest character developments of him by not playing that. Then, of course, the Ezio trilogy added it in. But yeah, like this game does the same thing, except it doesn't add it in.
Right, it's just still side quests.
Right.
It's optional stuff.
Well, and I've noticed too that a lot of the criticism of Connor that we've talked about before is he doesn't open up to people. He doesn't talk very much. He doesn't ever really tell you how he feels about stuff, and you don't really know what's going on with him. But a lot of people think that that just means he's an emotionless idiot. And I think that a big reason people think that is because they didn't engage in that side content. I know you can put some blame on players and say they should have, but like, come on. The Assassin's Creed games are so full of side content. Are you really going to do every single thing? Most people aren't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like taking up a new job with some of these games with how much stuff is on that map.
A lot of players just play the main story. And as a developer, I feel like they should have understood that fact that people are just going to mainly play the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they might touch a few side stuff here and there, but a majority of players just only want to play the story. So why hide half your content? Well, not half, but why hide a lot of your content in side stuff? And then fans go on and complain, in my opinion, unfairly, about how Connor doesn't develop and he's very stoic and all this stuff. It's like, well, like you said, it's partly the fans' fault for not playing that stuff, but it's also partly the developer's fault.
Yeah.
You know, and that just shouldn't really be a problem.
When you pretty much finish the homestead missions and you're gifted the homestead flag, and you're actually given that, and Connor, you could tell, is very proud of that moment and happy and feels very fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of go in contrast with what's happening in the main story, where he loses his tribe and he loses his place of belonging with the Native Americans and stuff like that.
He made a new tribe.
Yeah, but you're not seeing that.
Right.
Because most people didn't play that. And you can look at the achievement percentages and all that stuff, and you can see they didn't play it.
Yeah.
And it's just unfortunate that that's where a lot of that humanization was.
Number 4. It's the fourth one.
4.
Next one on our list is actually splitting development with Assassin's Creed 3. Now, what we mean by that is Revelations was also being worked on at the same time as AC3.
Mm-hmm.
It was being worked on by a different team, so it's not the same team making both games, it's a different team. But I think that's kind of a problem with this game, and also with Revelations 2. Now, I think both games are good, but when you're splitting up your team, well, okay, when you're splitting up your focus, I should say, on a game, whether that's through the same team or multiple teams, it's bound to suffer.
Yeah.
And now maybe the suffering isn't by the story or anything like that, but it's suffering with maybe glitches or general run problems or stuff like that.
Well, didn't you notice
And-
that Revelations had way less of that than
Yeah,
this?
I did.
Because
it seemed like that was the focus.
They had an established groundwork.
Yeah.
They had 2, then Brotherhood,
Yep.
and then in a lot of ways, Revelations is an extension of Brotherhood.
Yeah.
You know, in a lot of ways, the way it plays, what you do, the framework was all there, but they're trying to do something totally new gameplay styles, entirely new country, new time period, just completely with 3. And because of that, and also to your point, there was another thing that added to that split too, which was the change of plans.
Right.
So because of both of those things, I think that 3 had a lot of technical issues. You know, if you look back at the supposed scrapped story, they weren't originally planning multiple Ezio spin-offs. That was
Right.
something that came up over time.
Right.
But you can see how that change kind of affected Assassin's Creed, where now 3 is this game that even to this day is plagued by a lot of bugs that actually hurt the experience of it.
Yeah, that's the problem with it is when they worked on 3, they should have just finished Revelations, and then they should put all their main focus into 3. Instead of having 3 almost seem like a side project. That's kind of the feel I got with it, is it really just felt like they were like, well, let's make Revelations. Yeah, this is a good game. Yeah, the Ezio trilogy. We want to make this other game. Maybe you guys can work on this over here. And that's kind of the effect that I feel like 3 got. And to me, it's such a shame because it really suffered. Now, I still love the game, but a lot of fans, I feel like, didn't. And a lot of their criticisms, in my opinion, are warranted because the game did suffer by glitches and stuff like that, and that's probably a mistake with the developers.
And this would inevitably lead up to the attitude that made Unity come out a broken mess. It's great now, tons of fun, but this attitude of like, oh, just get the game out, whatever. That attitude they started to go for with 3 really hurt them long term. It almost killed this entire franchise inevitably with, Unity's launch.
Right. Well, and obviously that problem's not a problem with, 4.
No.
4 is great. Everyone loves 4, but yeah, with 3 and Unity especially, it is a problem. And that's kind of the problem with splitting development, is your focus is not on one game.
And it didn't stop here.
No.
They didn't.
No, absolutely not.
Whenever you open the door to this, to just get the game out, it never ends.
No.
It just gets worse and worse. It snowballs.
Yeah. Because then now the next game they make, they're going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So...
It's just too bad.
Yeah, it is a shame because this game, well, it's my second favorite Assassin's Creed game, I still am not blind to the fact that it has a lot of issues. And I just wish it didn't.
Number 3.
The next one, Nate, is something I want your personal opinion on. We always talk about this. You are a history major. You're here now,
Casual.
not in the military. You're just a private in the
Well, I
history
wish I
army,
was.
touching privates. But you are a major in history in college, and you had a lot to say about this because Connor didn't actually participate in that much of the Revolutionary War. He was on the sideline a lot.
Yeah, this was kind of my biggest problem with this game, is a lot of the beginning intro videos and hype trailers and stuff like that for this game all pointed to Connor being in the Revolutionary War. Now, he was, but I feel like he wasn't that much. I feel like a lot of his story was scrunched up, his beginning story, was kind of scrunched up into a few hours, and then he meets Washington and then participates in certain Revolutionary War events like the Boston Tea Party or Concord and Lexington or the Paul Revere ride and, you know, a couple other things. But my problem is the focus with the game should have always been on the Revolutionary War. Now, he doesn't have to be, you know, holding hands with George Washington the entire game. I understand that. Like, I'm not expecting, like, every single battle in the Revolutionary War needs to be in this game.
And he's leading it.
And he's leading the war. I understand that, but I feel like we should have gotten more. Like, to me, the biggest problem with this is that the game does not allow you to participate in the Battle of Yorktown.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a Revolutionary War game. Why are you not participating in the ending of the Revolutionary War?
It almost skips past the ending of the Revolutionary War.
It almost seems like, what is the purpose of having Conor participate in the Revolutionary War and actually care about it and try to help out Washington and have this whole development George Washington, but then not have him participate in the ending of the Revolutionary War? Like, don't you think Conor would care about that?
Yeah.
Wouldn't Conor, you know, because he participated in, like, I'm going to make up a number here, 10 different Revolutionary War events. Why would he just be like, oh, the last battle? Well, whatever.
Well, another example of that, too, is Benedict Arnold.
Yeah.
That was basically a side DLC mission pack.
Yes.
And that actually mattered. That tied into directly the relationship with Conor and Washington, where he actually talked to him. I believe, too, that was like it was like during their split. Because that's another thing, too, is you have this entire dynamic between Washington and Conor, where they are friends, and that does matter in the game. But a ton of that, again, like his humanization, is skipped over at points. One of those points is the Benedict Arnold mission pack not being available from scratch to everybody in the base game, which actually had a lot to do with the fallout between Washington and Conor, because Conor basically is like, how dare you call me back to get my help? This is the last time I'm helping you. And we wouldn't see that at all if you didn't get to play that, which was cut out of the base game. And of course, on top of that, then you get to things like the tyranny of King Washington, and they've just magically made up. Conor and Washington are buddies again. We never got to see that happen.
Right.
It's just
it's a problem.
So much Revolutionary War stuff and Conor stuff personally is skipped over.
And the other thing I just thought of right now, because this really pissed me off when I was playing the game, how come you didn't get to meet more Founding Fathers?
Yeah, why is Benjamin Franklin, he's really only in Tyranny of King Washington for the most part.
Well, yeah, like the Founding Fathers that are in the game are Washington, Samuel Adams, Benjamin Franklin, if you count the Tyranny of King Washington.
Well, also
he's also in the base game.
Yeah, you meet him like one time as Haytham.
Barely in the base game. There might be one other Founding Father I'm forgetting about off the top of my head, but we don't ever get to meet Thomas Jefferson. Actually, Thomas Jefferson's in the Tyranny of King Washington, now that I think about it.
A couple of them are in that alternate time
briefly.
Yeah.
But in the base game, we don't ever get to meet Jefferson. We don't ever get to meet John Adams. Like, why?
I don't know.
The answer with John Adams is probably because he was in Europe for most of the Revolutionary War. But I feel like he should at least be in the game. Like, he's an important founding father. Where's James Madison? Where's John Hancock?
Honestly, where's George Washington most of the time?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a focus, and we don't actually see him that many times.
I know.
There's even promotional images of him and Conor together.
There should be a part in the game where you go out to Mount Vernon and meet George Washington.
Yeah, and then you go to South Dakota and you all carve his head in the mountain.
I know. What's the problem?
No, I agree with you completely.
It's just stupid. It's silly. And the other thing is, like, you go to Boston.
I think we found your main complaint.
This is my biggest...
I think we've uncovered it.
You go to Boston. Like, Boston's one of the main story locations in the game, and yet you can't even go to John Adams' house. His house is in Boston.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like, there's so much of the Founding Father content that was not included in the game, and I don't understand why.
Well, Benjamin Franklin...
Same with the Revolutionary War battles, too.
But Benjamin Franklin is probably one of the biggest egregious ones to me. Why do you go collect his almanac pages as Conor, Haytham's son? First off, why do you even care about that as Conor?
Right.
And secondly, why do you go collect them if you're never going to go give them back and be like, hey... my father was supposed to get these for you years ago. And he's like, okay, well, you got them for me years later. I don't need these. I'm sure he'd be like, oh, thank you. But you know what I mean? It's a very weird plot hole in general that you are supposed to care about this collectible, and then you never care about the guy who it's for.
Yeah, isn't that kind of weird?
Yes.
Like, it just... I don't understand why all this content was skipped over.
Well,
and the thing is, if you're going to market this game as a Revolutionary War game, and you're going to make it a Revolutionary War game, why skip over all this content? I don't have the same problem with other Assassin's Creed games. I feel like a lot of the Assassin's Creed games, you know, like Unity, for example, I thought did a very good job tackling the French Revolution. But I have a problem with this one. It's like there's so much content in the Revolutionary War, and yet half of it is missing.
Number two, the numero dos. So the next one we have is the Charles Lee final boss chase. This is going to be a lot shorter of a criticism, but just generally, I don't think this should have been done the way it was.
Yeah.
You pointed out almost nobody likes it. I actually never minded it.
I don't mind it either. I'm fine with it.
When we played it, Charles Lee was not a huge focus to me. I know the game is constantly telling you he is, but by this point, you had kind of learned that Charles Lee didn't matter quite as much.
Yeah.
It was really Washington that was responsible for the village being burned. And obviously, Charles Lee is still an evil piece of garbage, but he's just not as much a focus compared to Haytham.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get to Charles Lee, it should be a bigger payoff, but also I wasn't thinking about him that much, so I think that's why in my head this didn't come up. Other people didn't feel that way at all, though. I think other people had been led to believe so much that Charles Lee mattered because of, obviously, Conor constantly bringing him up.
Right.
And then you get to him, and it's just pretty much a linear chase.
Yeah, the weird thing about the Charles Lee final boss chase to me is I felt like Haytham was the main villain of the game.
And kind of the main final boss. You actually fight him.
I kind of felt like that. Like, to me, when I beat Haytham, the first time I ever played this game, I beat Haytham, and I kind of thought, oh, okay, cool, yeah, that was a nice final boss. And then you go and fight, or not fight, you chase Charles Lee, and the thought I had was, oh yeah, I forgot about this guy.
Yeah.
Because it really just feels like Haytham is the final boss. And to be honest, he should be the final boss.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Charles Lee was as important enough to warrant the final boss of the game. And then the final boss of the game was a chase scene, which I didn't mind. I don't like it if you're trying to do the full sync. That's really stupid. But I didn't mind the chase scene, but I understand like 90% of the fan base hates this.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest with you, I agree it is a major mistake with the game.
Yeah.
Like, your final boss of your game should not be a chase scene.
Well, and if you're looking at it too, did we really need Charles Lee that much anyway?
No.
He didn't really need to be a focus of the game as a villain regardless. I think you could have almost entirely cut him and just had it be Haytham.
Right.
And had Charles Lee be a guy who worked for Haytham.
Well, yeah, he could have been one of the other Templar people.
And that's
like
it.
Just another Templar person.
Which, yeah, he was, but they made him a focus of the Templar side.
Right.
Why wasn't it just essentially Conor versus Haytham? And Charles Lee is one of the main targets you take out. And then you could have very easily had an epic battle between Haytham and Conor.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, had the final thing where Conor finds Charles Lee in the bar and kills him. Just do that with Haytham instead.
Right.
Haytham gets away, goes to have one last drink, and Conor comes in and kills him.
One last drink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an alcoholic Vin Diesel. But don't you agree that you could have almost pulled Charles Lee and replaced a lot of his role with Haytham?
You could have easily have done that. Or you could have easily have had Charles Lee be another Templar agent and then have the chase scene, but just have that be his boss scene.
Yeah, not the final one.
Right. And then have Haytham be the final boss.
I agree.
You could have easily have just done that.
Charles Lee almost comes off feeling like an afterthought or an epilogue.
Yeah.
Number one!
Splat.
The final one is the Haytham prologue. Nate, let's try not to make this 30 minutes. People like Haytham.
Okay.
People like Haytham.
I like Haytham too.
I'm fine with Haytham. I don't actually think he's that likable. I think he's kind of a self-righteous prick.
Mm-hmm.
I get why people like him. However, I almost feel like you could have done something similar to Assassin's Creed Liberation.
I was just about to bring this up. I was literally just thinking this.
And done an entire thing with Haytham.
Yes.
Make it longer.
Yes.
And his own game. And then Conor actually gets his own full game. We went from Ezio, who got 3 games, and we went from, actually more than that if you include the DS stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we went, of course, from him who also was getting Assassin's Creed Embers, the movie, and he was getting a movie about his father, too. And then, of course, Altair was in multiple games. He was in a PSP game. He was in his original Assassin's Creed game.
He even appeared in the Ezio game.
Yeah, in Revelations.
Yep.
And honestly, the other ones too, just not as much.
Right.
So we went from all these characters that got multiple games or movies or whatever to Connor, who got 3/4 of a game. And then people are like, well, this guy wasn't developed enough. And it's you kind of look at it and you're thinking, yeah, I wonder how that could have happened, Ubisoft. How could you go from characters that got multiple games and movies and spin-off titles and books, literal novels, there are novels talking about Ezio, to, I don't know, let's make his dad the first fourth of the game, and then let's make him the other 3/4, but for a fourth of that, let's have him not be an assassin again, so he's really only an assassin for half the game, plus, all the other stuff on the side.
No, Haytham should have been a cutscene at the beginning.
Or his own game.
Or, my preferred method is his own game, but if you're not going to give him his own game, it should have just been a cutscene. That's it. I don't understand why a fourth of the game needs to be Haytham. And I understand people like him, but it's a bad choice. Not only do you get, 3 sequences with Haytham?
Pretty much, yeah.
I think it's 3. And then the entire 4th sequence is child Connor. So by the time you actually get to adult Connor, you're already 5 sequences into the game. That's a problem.
A lot of people
this.
A lot of people told me they quit before Connor, by the way.
Yeah.
When we were talking about this,
they did.
Do you remember reading through the comments on that video?
Yeah.
We were talking about Assassin's Creed 3, I don't remember on which video. And a ton of you guys said, yeah, I don't really even make it to Connor when I play this game.
Right.
I just play through the Haytham part. Then sometimes I get a little bit into it, and then I'm like, I'm just going to go play a different Assassin's Creed.
Well, and you can even see that if you look at the trophy list, too. On the PlayStation, there's actually a major drop-off between the Haytham one and then the start of Connor's. It's because by the time people get to Connor, they're kind of like, I don't really care anymore, because I just finished a 3-sequence worthless point of Haytham. That could have just been his own game anyways. And then I just played Child Connor, that was kind of whatever. And now I'm finally in Connor, but then by the time he's actually an assassin, you're to the end of that sequence, so then you might as well just start the next sequence after that.
Yeah, I believe you're pretty much at sequence 6.
By the time he's assassined Connor.
And not fully developed assassin, obviously. He novice assassin.
Just got to be assassin.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's kind of stupid, and I understand people like Haytham, that's fine, but this really kind of ruined the game. This is a major mistake with the game, and I honestly think this ruined it for a lot of fans.
I think that the fact that people like Haytham, though, like I said, goes to show he could have supported a game.
He could have easily supported
Maybe he
a game.
didn't need a full game, but something like Liberation or, Freedom Cry, something like that. I don't know. There was a lot of issues with AC3 that are very unfortunate because they could have really made this one of the best games in the franchise in general. And instead, even though we love the game, it's extremely flawed.
Yeah. I mean, I wish Bandit Keith was working on this game. It'd be an actual full game.
Yeah, I wanted
for America.
Well, I think it would have been a little too America sympathetic. Bandit Keith would have written in some changes. He would have been like, now hold on, who was really here first? But yeah, now let us know what you think in the comments down below on this. We are going to make more top 5s of Assassin's Creed. Also, more mistakes the game's series made. So let us know if you have any suggestions down below for really any of the games or this one. Please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. If you're interested, the channel memberships are now up. If you made it to this point in the video, I don't know, maybe you will be, but there's a lot of really cool exclusive stuff, pretty cheap. The join button is down below the video if you're interested, and all the tiers are laid out there. And we'll have more coming up in the future. We hope you have a fantastic day, and as always, everyone, stay shway.